Today we'll be doing an install on a Yamaha 4-stroke 6, 8, and 9.9 horsepower. The 6 and 8 were released earlier, 2001, 2, somewhere in that range. 2008 and on, the 9.9s were included as well in this. The remote version, this happens to be a tiller motor that we have here for an example. But the remote version will have a black shroud right here for the electric choke, and therefore you could not install the tiller handle version that I have. So again, there'll be a black shroud. There's a little bit of an angle on this side. First thing you're going to want to do is install the servo. I've got a bolt that's included to hold down the shroud. So you remove the existing bolt that you have and replace it and thread in this one, which is already pre-done on the servo bracket. The angle on this, if you're looking straight up and down, you want to look straight up and down. There'll be just a slight gap between the radius of this and the edge of the metal there. About an 1/8 inch or so. You'll know if it's correct is once you have this mounted, you want to put your cowling on and just make sure that nothing touches. If this is rotated too far out, this back corner will touch the cowling because of how it narrows towards the back. If it's at this angle, you'll be good. The next thing you want to do is you want to remove the factory screw that holds on the factory linkage and replace it. There's a clip here, and if you kind of 2 fingers here to push it straight out, with that screw off, you'll be able to remove the factory linkage and use the new linkage. The reason for the new linkage is we're going to use this collar to allow the factory throttle to push, but if the servo needs to take up throttle, it can also slide on here as well. There's a threaded and a non-threaded section, so you want to make sure you're using the non-threaded section for this linkage. This clip moves back, line up the clip, and then you're going to press straight in with your finger and it'll snap into place. Next thing you want to do is make sure you're at idle. So on your factory linkage, or you want to just make sure it's in neutral. Press this forward, and with the included Allen, you're going to loosen the collar up just enough to slide it. You're going to slide it till it touches and then back off about a 1/16 or an 1/8 inch. You want a little bit of a gap here so that the factory throttle always allows it to get to neutral. At this point, you want to double check. Take your factory throttle and put it all the way to in gear and all the way full throttle. When you do that, you want to come back here and just make sure that you can't pull back any further, and you'll notice that it's touching up here. Once you've verified that, go ahead and put it back to neutral. So you'll have a little bit of a gap. You want to make sure that the idle adjustment screw right here is touching. So at this point, you do not want to set the throttle cable until the unit is powered on. The reason being is when it goes to the idle position, it will rotate to the idle position. As you can see, I can right now very easily rotate this. If we press and hold the power button to turn the unit on, the first thing this thing will do is it'll go right away to the idle position. At this point, I can no longer rotate it. It's because it's at idle on the throttle controller as well. So we have this, it's tight. We have this linkage. It has just a little bit of gap. The idle adjustment screw is touching. We want to carefully make sure that the crimp stays on the cable while we undo this. Okay, keeping the crimp up here with my finger, you're going to go from the outside of this linkage through the inside, and then we're going to come back and I'll put this in the crimp. Okay. So once that's in there, again, make sure as you're pulling this through, you want to make sure that the cable goes from the outside around and comes up through. We want this to be fairly tight to the brass piece here. You'll see that there is a gap, so we're not touching anything here because it's coming from the outside, looping around. And then what you want to take is a side cutter. Works really well. Just remember that the tips, it's much easier to modulate how much force than it is down the bottom. Just take the tip of the side cutter onto the crimp. We've got our tag end right here to snug it up. But before we cinch down, we want to double check that this brass piece is pushed all the way and that we are still touching the idle adjustment screw and the main line is fairly tight. Doesn't have to be perfect. We do have adjustment. So I can pull it like this and we're too tight. Push it back so that we're at the idle position. So down here that screw is touching the plate and our loop is fairly tight, and then just enough to get contact. So I've just got it snugged. I want to double check, make sure everything looks good, and it does. I will now put a second crimp and with that I'm going to bend this outward and then cut it off, cut the tag end right here, cut it off close to the crimp. For the wire routing, you want to make sure that nothing can get up into the flywheel, nothing can get over by the belt, and you want to keep it away from hot parts. I typically like to route things on the intake side because this is a much, these are much cooler. You got air flowing through here. We have this breather tube right here. So zip tying and holding this along this breather tube, and then I would work up through the front. Now when you're installing this unit, this cable, you're going to take the cut end and feed it into the boat to where the T-connector is to bring power. This connector has a little boot on it when it's shipped. You don't want this to be fed through because you could damage these pins. So with a cut cable, I would typically route this right out where the grommet is right here. And then from there, follow any hose or things that you have going back to the engine and zip tie or secure it so that it can't go anywhere near heat or abrasion. Just make sure that it's protected. Again, once it's through here, connect. You want to make sure that nothing can get its way up by the flywheel again, and nothing can get over by underneath this black cover is the belt. You don't want anything to possibly get in there. So keep things secure from vibration, and then you should be good. With this all connected, I'm now going to take the remote and I'm going to press and hold until I have a gap. So I've got tension on this cable and I have a gap at the idle adjustment screw. I'm going to take this paper, just a regular piece of paper, and I'm going to put that in there as a feeler gauge. And then I'm going to back off the throttle percent up here on the controller until I feel resistance. So I'm going to back off until I start feeling some resistance. I'm starting to feel it there. Okay. So I'm at 2% throttle right now. That's probably, for a carbureted motor, that's a little on the tight side. While it would work, I would hate to have it have an elevated idle when you go to shift. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the idle button, go back to 0% throttle, and with the same Allen wrench, I'm going to slightly loosen up this cable. So I'm just going to put the Allen wrench in there, hold it, turn it back just slightly, and then I rotate it a little bit. And then while holding it, I'm going to snug it up again. And then we'll retest. So to retest, the same thing. Go until I have a gap. And the paper should slide in there nice and easy. And then back off one click at a time. Okay, and right there I've got resistance. I'm at 5.25% throttle. For a carbureted motor, 5 to 10% throttle is sufficient. You don't need to get any more than that. For example, I'll take it now up to max throttle. So max throttle on here is not 100% of the actual kicker. However, on a kicker, much over half throttle is about all you'll throw with, maybe 3/4 at the most. Here we're not able to get to full throttle, but we're darn close. Again, more than sufficient for trolling. Typical trolling will be only minuscule amount of throttle, depending if you're salmon fishing or walleye fishing or what you're dragging behind yourself. From here, you're all set and you're ready to start fishing.